Hello, my name is Ian Merles, and I'm responding to this well-written article by conservative Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove. He draws from his own experiences in his conservative congregation and reflects on the evolving relationship between contemporary American Jews and Jewish law. His central argument revolves around how modern Jews have increasingly distanced themselves from strict halachic observance, yet they still maintain a deep emotional and cultural connection to Jewish practices, particularly the mitzvot, even if these are performed on a voluntary basis and not part of a comprehensive, obligatory halachic system. Whenever I read anything, from a poem to an essay to an official government statement, my initial question is always, what is the author's goal in writing it? It seems to me that Rabbi Cosgrove's goal here is twofold. Firstly, to analyze the changing role of halakha. Secondly, to offer a path forward for Jewish leadership. After a few reflections on his article, I will circle back and assess if Rabbi Cosgrove achieved those goals in this article. Rabbi Cosgrove offers astute observations on contemporary Jewish practice. Observance today is episodic and voluntary, he points out. Jews pick and choose which mitzvot to observe, typically tied to life cycle events or cultural touch points such as celebrating bar bat mitzvot, weddings, lighting Shabbat candles, or celebrating Passover. These practices are often done out of personal choice or a desire to connect with Jewish identity rather than out of an obligation to follow halakha. Historical context is also explored in a sophisticated fashion. He provides historical background describing how the Enlightenment and Emancipation reshaped Jewish life by challenging the authority of Jewish law and empowering individual freedom, something we all enjoy today. I know I do. This shift led to the creation of different modern Jewish denominations, the Reformed, Conservative, and Orthodox, each trying to navigate that tension between tradition, and modernity. Rabbi Cosgrove is very thorough in his analysis and includes theological and sociological dimensions. The piece delves into the theological implications of Jewish law. He highlights the idea how for many Jews today, halakha is no longer the primary means of expressing religious devotion or of maintaining communal cohesion. Instead, Jewish practice has become more individualized and symbolic. He also discusses the social role of halakha that once played in uniting dispersed communities, a role that's weakened in the face of modernity. Not sufficing with this just deconstruction and criticism, towards the end, Rabbi Cosgrove constructively reflects on the role of rabbis and Jewish leaders and the need for change in leadership. He suggests that Jewish movements, especially his own conservative Judaism, needs to reconsider their approach to halakha, moving away from a strict legalistic framework to one that is more focused on inspiring Jews to engage with Jewish spirituality in ways which resonate with their contemporary lives. The concept of Jewish mitzvot as expressions of personal service to God rather than obligatory commands is central to his vision. In the Jewish tradition, praising and agreement just make one a mere yes man and not a good interlocutor, not a good chevruta. The most famous example of this is from the Talmud when, following the death of his chevruta Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan's study partner was replaced with the brilliant sage Rabbi Elazar ben Padat. During a discussion of halakha, Rabbi Yochanan was dissatisfied with Rabbi Elazar ben Padat because he only supported his position. Real learning happens when wisdom grows with respectful disagreement. So now I will put on my Reish Lakish hat, or kippah, and offer some criticism and disagreement. Rabbi Cosgrove's views largely reflect those of the conservative movement of which he is a product, affiliates with, and works within in the flagship institution from which he graduated, the Jewish Theological Seminary. On a positive note, this is why he has such a critical intellectual temper and reflective theological and sociological self-awareness. Nevertheless, there are some things as a conservative rabbi that he conspicuously doesn't say in this piece. As my favorite American theologian, Ralph Waldo Emerson, wrote in his famous essay, Self-Reliance, "If I know your sect, I anticipate your argument." Rabbi Cosgrove doesn't endorse the individual autonomy of Jews to decide for themselves what elements of halakha to observe or what mitzvot one should observe, even though he acknowledges that this is what happens in practice across all the denominations in his own congregation and movement. That would be to reform. There was a joke I heard decades ago at JTS that at JTS, Orthodox professors make conservative rabbis for Reform congregations. I think that was very true then. I don't know if it still is, but either way, it doesn't seem to me that he wants to explicitly say that JTS and the conservative movement's role should be to make reform rabbis for reform congregations. What would be the reason d'être? I never say that right. The reason d'être that would distinguish the conservative movement from the Reform and Reconstructionist movement. Should all non-Orthodox denominations, non-halachic denominations, just merge and combine resources? Or is he saying, how is conservative movement still halachic then in his suggested changes? Rabbi Cosgrove's lack of comparison for his own movement to the Reform movement was notable to me for an additional reason, his almost envious comparison of the conservative movement to Chabad. The comparison is historically ironic because the founder of the conservative movement in America, Rabbi Solomon Schechter, came from a Chabad Hasidic family himself, but envisioned JTS and the conservative movement as a response against the non-halachic reform movement. Rabbi Cosgrove would have the conservative movement imitate, but does not explicitly say so, the reform movement. I also reject his claim that the difference between the conservative movement and Chabad are in the tactics alone. I don't think they stem from the same working premise as he posits, that the gap between the assimilated Jew and the halachic observance. The difference is deeply rooted in theological, not merely in tactical response to this gap, as he wrote. I have said here a lot and could say a lot more in many directions, but even after this criticism or reflections, I will end on an appreciative note. Rabbi Cosgrove's piece is thoughtful reflection on the state of Jewish observance in the modern world. He achieves those goals, analyzes the changing role of halakha, and then offers a path forward for Jewish leadership. Overall, he recognizes the realities of contemporary Jewish life, where observance is a personal choice and voluntary to propose, and instead, he proposes a shift in how Jewish law is approached to meet that. He calls for a broader, more inclusive vision of Jewish life that meets people where they are, encouraging a meaningful connection to Jewish practice without relying solely on traditional Jewish legal frameworks. I certainly share Rabbi Cosgrove's vision of the way forward for Jewish leaders, offering opportunities for connection to God and to the Jewish tradition to those who would be receptive, whatever their motivation is. Thank you very much.